Good evening, dear movie enthusiasts. Our film today is called The Tomorrow War, and it tells the story of a great war that will take place in the future, led by someone from the past. But you won't understand until we see it together. Let's dive in. The film starts with a character named Dan, who accidentally falls through a massive time portal and ends up in the future. Upon arriving, he prepares his weapon for the ongoing large-scale war. Then we go back to the past to understand the story from the beginning. We go back more than 20 years, where we see Dan as a young man, attracting the attention of all the girls. Dan was a science teacher, but he didn't enjoy his job because he wanted to be a renowned scientist known by everyone. At that time, he returned home to find his wife throwing a big party for their daughter's birthday, inviting all the neighbors. Since Dan didn't enjoy his job, he decides to apply for a position at a large company to fulfill his lifelong dream of becoming a respected scientist. While standing with his wife in the kitchen, his phone rings, and he quickly steps out of the apartment to answer it, away from the noise. It was the company he applied to, informing him that he was rejected and they hired someone else instead. This rejection leaves Dan depressed, feeling like he'll never achieve his dream no matter what. Then he sits down with his daughter, Mary, and they watch TV together. Dan is careful not to show any worries in front of his daughter. However, Mary loves her father and senses his sadness. She tries to talk to him, hoping to ease his problems and worries because she just wants to see him smile in front of her. Then something strange happens. Dan sees on TV a massive time portal opening in a stadium, and a large number of strange-looking forces emerge from it. Their leader speaks and says, "I am addressing all the world governments from my current location. We are coming from the future, 30 years ahead of you, to warn you about a grave danger to humanity." The leader continues, "There are highly dangerous extraterrestrial creatures, distinguishable by their white appearance. These creatures are fighting against humanity in the future, and they are close to wiping out all of us." She further adds, "I have come here to seek your help in fighting these dangerous extraterrestrial creatures. They pose a threat to us and to all of you because your future selves will also face them." The entire world population listens to the leader's words, astonished and disbelieving. The media broadcasts all the statements made by this leader. Subsequently, all the world governments decide to help the future humans. They unite to confront these monsters and eliminate them before they grow in numbers and force the future humans to face them alone. Every government enforces mandatory conscription to increase their military forces and select the most capable individuals among their populations to fight alongside the future humans. At that time, the future population numbered 500,000 individuals, and those conscripted from present-day societies were immediately sent to the future. However, there was a significant problem. Those who went to the future did not return due to encounters with the extraterrestrials resulting in their deaths. Meanwhile, Dan's daughter, Mary, was extremely afraid that her father would be conscripted and be among those who would go to the future to fight the extraterrestrial creatures. But her father reassures her and promises that he will stay with her and not go anywhere. The next day, Dan goes to work, where he explains things to his students as usual. However, all the students feel discouraged and fearful because they don't know what their future will be like due to the presence of the extraterrestrial creatures. Here, Dan tries to reassure them that they have the strength to overcome and find a solution to eliminate these dangerous extraterrestrial beings threatening their existence in the future. At that moment, a military officer approaches Dan and hands him a letter, informing him that he has been selected for enlistment and will be traveling to the future to fight alongside the humans against the extraterrestrial creatures. Dan becomes overwhelmed and unsure of what to do next. He decides to go to the command center, where they evaluate his suitability for the mission. I remember during my military assessment, I had someone with me who only saw through magnifying lenses, and they took him as a sniper_carrot. After the evaluation is completed, they provide Dan with a tracking device in the form of a bracelet, which he must wear during the time travel. The bracelet ensures that he can be located and brought back to the present time once his mission is accomplished. Dan realizes that he has no choice but to accept the mission and do whatever it takes to protect humanity. As Dan prepares to embark on this dangerous journey to the future, he bids farewell to his family, assuring them that he will return. Mary, his daughter, becomes emotional and pleads with him not to go. However, Dan consoles her, promising that he will be with her in every moment, even though they may be physically apart. The scene shifts to a high-tech laboratory where Dan, along with other enlisted individuals, undergoes a process to travel through time. They are placed inside a futuristic device, surrounded by swirling energy and intense vibrations. The device activates, engulfing them in a brilliant light, and the next moment, they find themselves transported to the future. In the future, Dan and the other soldiers witness the devastating consequences of the extraterrestrial invasion. The city is in ruins, and humanity is engaged in a fierce battle for survival. The extraterrestrial creatures, with their white-colored, ferocious appearance, pose a formidable threat. Dan joins the human resistance, led by the commander, and together, they strategize and fight against the extraterrestrial menace. As the war intensifies, Dan displays courage, resilience, and determination, becoming a key asset in the fight for humanity's survival. Throughout the film, Dan and his comrades face numerous challenges, encounter thrilling action sequences, and experience emotional moments of camaraderie and sacrifice. They must find a way to overcome the extraterrestrial forces and secure a future for humanity. The Tomorrow War takes viewers on an epic journey filled with suspense, action, and hope. Will Dan and the human resistance succeed in defeating the extraterrestrial creatures and saving humanity from extinction? The answer lies in the relentless battle that awaits them in the future. Here, Teal'c poured water on him to make sure he wasn't carrying any surveillance devices. Then, Dan couldn't stand it and argued with him because he thought he was a traitor, and also because of his mother since he left them alone for all those past years, and life has been grinding them both. After that, Dan returned home and entered his wife's room, talked to her, and let her know that there is no other solution but to go there with them to fight. He assured her that he would return after a week. The next day, Dan went to the camp and joined the other civilians who were like him. None of them had any experience in fighting, war, or weapons. They were all afraid of dying because they were weak. Then, the commander from the future appeared and spoke to them, informing them that they would stay there for 7 days to be trained during these days and then they would prepare to travel to the future and fight the aliens. Each group would consist of 4 members, and each one would have a specific role. Dan's team consisted of the former soldier Charlie Andoria, who had traveled 4 times and returned and would travel again. Then the commander informed them that they would travel to the year 2051, and the aliens' appearance was disgusting, and they fed on humans. Then the alarm bell rang quickly, and no one understood what had happened. The commander came and informed them that they must prepare quickly to go to the future now. Everyone was surprised that they hadn't been trained yet. The commander told them that the lab where they were developing a poison against the aliens was under attack, and everyone inside had died. They needed to go there quickly to take samples of the poison before the aliens destroy the lab. Then they all stood in front of the time portal, and they all flew up, but there was a problem with the system, and they ended up in a different place in the future. A large number of them landed on the rooftops of buildings, and many of them died. Dan fell into a swimming pool, and he and the others who landed with him survived in the same swimming pool. At that time, the future was destroyed and lost because of the aliens, and they didn't know what to do with such a small number of soldiers. One of the army personnel told them to quickly go to the lab to take samples of the poison before her team destroyed the entire city. After that, the group chose a leader, and it was Dan because he had been in the army for 3 years. Dorian was his supervisor, as he had experienced the future multiple times and fought the aliens a lot. Then they all moved on the road until they reached the lab where everyone inside had already died, and none of them were alive. The sight of their bodies was extremely gruesome. Then the army captain contacted Dan and informed him to take samples of the poison and escape from the city quickly before her team blew it up due to the large number of aliens in it. Dan and his team took samples of the poison and quickly left the place before the aliens could see them. But as they were descending the stairs, one of the aliens spotted them and shot an arrow from its body, killing one member of Dan's team. Then they opened fire on it, and more than one alien appeared on the scene. They all ran away before the aliens could kill them, just as they had killed the research team. Then there was an alien chasing Dan, and Dan shot it multiple times, but it was useless. Then Dorian arrived and quickly killed it, and Dan realized that their weak spots were the neck and abdomen. After that, they all exited the house, leaving behind a trail of destruction. The once peaceful neighborhood now lay in ruins. People gathered outside, shocked and dismayed by the devastation before them. The authorities were called, and emergency services rushed to the scene. Firefighters battled the flames that consumed what was left of the house, while police officers interviewed witnesses to gather any information that could help solve the mystery behind this chaos. It was a chaotic and unsettling sight for everyone involved. As the night grew darker, the questions remained unanswered, and the community braced itself for the challenging task of rebuilding what had been lost. Afterward, Mari learned from her father that when the serum is ready, they must take it and go back in time to their own era. They would use it to create a large number of replicas to confront the extraterrestrial beings when they reached their own time. Later, Mari informed Dan that the extraterrestrial beings would also arrive on Earth in 2048, in Russia. Dan said to her, "I will do whatever you want, but I can't leave you behind. I will stay with you until we fight and eliminate all these monsters. I will deliver the serum to them and then return to you." Afterward, they managed to create the serum. However, the leader awakened and raised her voice, and a large number of extraterrestrial beings began to attack the military base. The soldiers prepared for a bloody battle. At this point, Mari handed the serum to her father, and she quickly took it to the gate to return it to its original time before the extraterrestrial beings could attack and destroy the serum. A large number of extraterrestrial beings reached the laboratory and freed their leader from the restraints. As Mari and Dan walked towards the gate, one of the extraterrestrial beings shot an arrow at Mari, and she fell to the ground injured. Dan helped her and took her with him to escape quickly from the military base, but they were surprised to see the base explode and completely destroyed. The leader of the extraterrestrial beings approached Mari and Dan, but the bridge beneath them collapsed, causing the leader to fall to the ground while taking Mari with her. However, Dan managed to hold on to his daughter at the last moment. However, Mari sacrificed herself to save her father. She activated the time portal, and her father returned to his own time while Mari fell with the leader of the extraterrestrial beings. Then, when he returned to his time, he met the army commander and informed her that he had the serum, and they needed to create a large quantity of it before the aliens reached their planet. Later, Dan returned home to his wife and Mari, and they were overjoyed that he had returned to them. Dan hugged his daughter Mari while thinking about her sacrifice. At night, Dan sat with his wife and told her everything that had happened to him, including what had happened to their daughter. He also informed her that the extraterrestrial beings would reach their Earth in their own time, 2048, in Russia. Here, his wife learned that he had formed his own team of skilled researchers and gathered extensive information about the aliens to be prepared for their arrival at any time. Meanwhile, Dan went to meet Dorian. Afterward, he obtained a chain with one claw from the extraterrestrial beings and took it with him to the laboratory to analyze it with their friend Charlie. Charlie informed them that the claw contained traces of a Chinese volcano eruption. Dan was surprised and realized that his daughter had told him that the extraterrestrial beings would appear for the first time in Russia. Dan immediately remembered the student named Martin, who had extensive experience with volcanoes. He asked him, how is it possible for an extraterrestrial being's claw to end up in China, but with traces of a Chinese volcano? Martin replied, there was a severe volcanic eruption in 946, and its ash spread all over the Earth, covering half of the planet. From that moment, Dan understood that the extraterrestrial beings had been present on Earth for thousands of years. The extraterrestrial beings had also been frozen in Russia for a long time, but due to global warming, they started to break free and spread across the world, their numbers increasing strangely. Dan immediately went to inform the Prime Minister about everything he knew and asked for a plane to go to Russia to neutralize the extraterrestrial threat. However, the Prime Minister regretfully informed him that communication with the future had been severed, rendering them unable to take immediate action. As a precaution, they had prepared a substantial amount of poison to address any potential threat. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Dan turned to his father for assistance in reaching Russia. With his father's unwavering support, they embarked on a perilous journey to confront the extraterrestrial creatures and eliminate them before they could multiply and wreak havoc. Equipped with advanced sensors, they tirelessly searched for the hidden spacecraft and eventually detected its underground location, approximately 300 meters away. Determined, they decided to blast through the ice, revealing a massive tunnel leading to the heart of the extraterrestrial threat. Entering the tunnel, they discovered the dormant creatures within their eggs, waiting to hatch. Swiftly, they administered the lethal poison they had brought, aiming to eradicate the impending danger. However, their efforts were met with an unforeseen challenge as a multitude of extraterrestrial creatures suddenly emerged from their eggs. Faced with imminent danger, Dan and his team triggered the spacecraft's explosive device, causing chaos within the tunnel. They swiftly made their escape. Despite their decisive actions, the leader of the extraterrestrial creatures managed to survive the destruction. Dan and his team confronted her head-on, engaging in a fierce battle to safeguard planet Earth and humanity. In a selfless act of bravery, Dan made the ultimate sacrifice. He tricked the leader into consuming the poison, saving his father's life. The leader succumbed to the deadly substance, bringing an end to the extraterrestrial threat. Having accomplished their mission, Dan returned to his beloved wife and daughter, embracing them tightly. Their joy knew no bounds as they were finally reunited. His father also found solace in the warmth of family, cherishing the precious moments they could now share. As the dust settled, the world rejoiced in the triumph over the extraterrestrial menace. Dan's extraordinary journey became an inspiring tale of courage and resilience, captivating millions on the YouTube channel that chronicled his heroic endeavors. In the closing scene, Dan stood amidst a cheering crowd, honored for his indomitable spirit and unwavering determination. The camera slowly panned out, capturing a world united in gratitude and hope, ready to face any future challenges that may arise. The end.